The twin suns of Kethera burned orange through the thick atmosphere as Daewon Kim pressed his face against the observation window of Research Outpost 7. His breath fogged the reinforced glass as he watched the vast purple grasslands stretch endlessly toward the horizon. 6 months on this remote planet had taught him to respect its deadly beauty. The Vakith hunting grounds were no place for humans to wander. These massive predators ruled Kethera with claws that could slice through steel and jaws powerful enough to crush bones like twigs. Every species in the galaxy feared them. Even the bravest space pirates avoided Vakith territory. Yet here Daewon stood, a simple xenobiologist from Earth, documenting their behavior from what he hoped was a safe distance. A deep roar echoed across the plains. Daewon grabbed his recording equipment and focused the long-range cameras. Too enormous. Volkith were locked in combat near the crystal formations that marked territorial boundaries. Their dark fur bristled with rage as they circled each other, each standing nearly 12 feet tall on powerful hind legs. The larger Vakith bore the scars of countless battles. His left eye was clouded white from an old wound and deep claw marks crossed his massive chest. This was Korath, the pack leader Daewon had been observing for weeks. The challenger was younger, his black fur unmarked by serious combat, but his muscles rippled with deadly strength. Daewon had seen Vekeratorial fights before, but always from much farther away. This battle was happening close enough to the research station that he could hear every snarl and see every drop of blood that fell to the purple grass. His hands shook as he adjusted the camera settings. The younger Vakith struck first, his razor-sharp claws raking across Korath's shoulder. Dark blood sprayed across the ground. Korath roared in pain and fury, then launched himself at his challenger with surprising speed for such a massive creature. His powerful jaws clamped down on the younger male's throat. For a moment, Daewon thought the fight was over, but the challenger was not finished. With a desperate burst of strength, he drove his claws deep into Korath's belly. Both predators separated, breathing heavily, their fur matted with blood. The battle continued for what felt like hours. Neither Vakith would yield. They crashed through the crystal formations, their roars shaking the ground beneath the research station. Daewon watched in horrified fascination, as two of the galaxy's most perfect killing machines fought to the death. Finally, Korath made a mistake. Perhaps age had slowed him, or perhaps his wounds were deeper than they appeared. The younger Vakith saw an opening and took it. His claws found Korath's throat, and this time there was no escape. Korath fell to the purple grass with a sound like thunder. His massive body twitched once, then lay still. The challenger stood over him, breathing hard, blood dripping from dozens of wounds. After a few moments, he limped away toward the distant mountains. Claiming his new territory, Daewon expected to feel satisfaction at witnessing such a rare event. Vakith territorial combat had never been recorded in such detail. This footage would make his career back on Earth, but as he watched Korath's lifeless form, he felt only sadness for the fallen hunter. Then he saw movement near the body. Daewon increased the magnification on his cameras. 3 small shapes emerged from behind a cluster of rocks where they had hidden during the battle. Vakith cubs, barely the size of human children, approached their father's body with hesitant steps. The cubs were perfect miniature versions of adult Vakith. Their fur was lighter than their father's, more gray than black, but their claws were already sharp and their eyes held the same predatory intelligence. They mewed softly as they circled Korath's body, their sounds carrying clearly across the plain. Daewon felt his heart break as he watched the orphan cubs. He knew what would happen next. Vakith society had no place for weakness. Cubs who lost their parents were abandoned to die. The pack would not waste resources on young who could not contribute to the hunt. As if summoned by his thoughts, the rest of Korath's pack appeared on the horizon. 5 adult Vakith approached the site of the battle. Daewon held his breath, hoping against hope that they would take the cubs with them. The adults examined Korath's body briefly, showing no emotion at their fallen leader's death. One of them, a female with distinctive white markings, sniffed at the cubs. For a moment, Daewon thought she might claim them. Instead, she turned away. The other adults followed her lead. Within minutes, the entire pack had disappeared into the purple grasslands. Leaving the 3 cubs alone with their father's body, Daewon watched in disbelief as the cubs continued to mew pitifully, clearly expecting the adults to return. They did not understand that they had been abandoned forever. In Vokith culture, only the strong survived. Cubs without parents were already dead. Other scavenger species that normally competed for Vokith kills stayed far away from the area. Even the carrion birds that could strip a carcass clean in hours avoided the sight. Every creature on Kethra instinctively knew that Vokith cubs, even orphaned ones, were too dangerous to approach. As the hours passed, the cubs grew more desperate. They tried to wake their father, pushing at his massive head with their small paws. When that failed, they huddled together against his body, seeking warmth and comfort that would not last. Night was falling on Kethra. The temperature would drop below freezing, and the cubs had no shelter. Daewon knew that by morning, 3 more Badas would lie on the purple grass. The galaxy's most feared predators would claim 3 more victims. Even in death, he should return to his quarters and write his report. He should document this rare glimpse into Vokith behavior and prepare to transmit his findings to Earth. He should follow every protocol and regulation that governed human interaction with alien species. Instead, Daewon Kim found himself checking the seals on his environmental suit and loading emergency supplies into his hover transport. His hands moved without conscious thought, driven by something deeper than scientific curiosity or career ambition. Every creature on Kethra had abandoned the hunter's offspring. Every species in the galaxy would do the same. But Daewon was human, and humans had never learned to walk away from children in need. The research station's automated systems logged his departure as he guided his transport toward the purple grasslands, where 3 small predators waited to die. Behind him, the safety of human civilization grew smaller. Ahead lay a choice that would change not just his life but the future of 2 species, the twin sons of Kethra set behind him, as Daewon Kim drove toward what every rational being would call certain death. But for the first time since arriving on this deadly world, he felt truly alive. The hover transport moved silently across the purple grasslands as Daewon approached the 3 cubs. His heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped bird. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but the image of those small creatures huddled against their dead father drove him forward. The cubs heard his transport before they saw it. Their heads snapped up in unison, yellow eyes gleaming in the fading light. Even as babies, they moved with the fluid grace of born killers. Daewon stopped his vehicle 50 meters away and stepped out slowly, his hands visible and empty. The largest cub, clearly the leader of the 3, positioned himself between Daewon and his siblings. A low growl rumbled from his tiny chest. His claws, already sharp enough to cut flesh, extended from his paws. Despite being no bigger than a human child, he showed no fear of the strange creature approaching them. Daewon knelt in the purple grass and spoke softly. The cubs could not understand his words, but his tone was gentle. He had raised abandoned animals on Earth many times, though none quite like these. Slowly, carefully, he reached into his pack and pulled out a protein bar. The smell of food caught their attention immediately. The cubs had not eaten since their father's death, and hunger was beginning to weaken them. The smallest one, a female with lighter fur than her brothers, took a tentative step forward before the largest pulled her back with a sharp bark. Daewon broke the protein bar into pieces and tossed them gently toward the cubs. They sniffed the strange food suspiciously. After several long minutes, hunger won over caution. The smallest cub darted forward, grabbed a piece, and retreated quickly to eat it. The taste seemed acceptable. Soon all 3 cubs were eating the offered food, though they never took their eyes off Daewon. He named them silently as he watched. The largest would be Kai, meaning victory. The middle child, slightly smaller but obviously clever, would be June, meaning talented. The smallest, the female who had been brave enough to approach first, would be Nara, meaning country. Getting them into the transport proved more challenging. The cubs had never seen human technology before. The hover transport's humming engines and glowing displays frightened them. It took nearly an hour of patient coaxing and more food before they would even approach the vehicle. Finally, desperation drove them inside. The temperature was dropping rapidly as Kethra's twin sons disappeared behind the mountains. The cubs huddled together in the transport's cargo bay, shivering despite their thick fur. Daewon activated the heating system and began the journey back to Research Outpost 7. His communicator crackled to life as he neared the station. Minji Lee's worried voice filled the transport cabin. Daewon, where are you? Your transport left the compound without authorization. Station Commander Han wants to speak with you immediately. Daewon took a deep breath before responding. I am returning now, Minji. I have 3 passengers with me. Passengers? What do you mean, passengers? Vokith cubs, orphans, they were abandoned after their father died in combat. The silence that followed lasted so long that Daewon wondered if his communicator had malfunctioned. When Minji finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Please tell me you are joking. I wish I was. The research station's landing bay was crowded when Daewon arrived. Dr. Bora Han, the station commander, waited with her arms crossed and her face dark with anger. Minji stood beside her, along with 3 security officers and the station's medical team. Everyone wore full protective gear. Dr. Han's voice boomed across the landing bay as Daewon shut down his transport. Kim Daewon, step out of that vehicle immediately. Security will handle the creatures. They are not creatures, Daewon replied as he emerged from the transport. They are children. They are the most dangerous predators in known space, Dr. Han snapped. Even as cubs, they could kill every person on this station. The cubs had heard the raised voices and were becoming agitated. Kai's growls grew louder as the security officers approached the transport. Nara and June pressed close to their brother, their yellow eyes wide with fear. Everyone stop moving, Daewon ordered. You are frightening them. We are frightening them? Dr. Han's voice rose another octave. Those things could tear through our security doors like paper. Daewon walked slowly back to the transport. The cubs relaxed slightly when they saw him, though they continued to watch the other humans suspiciously. He reached into the cargo bay and offered his hand to Kai, the largest cub. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kai sniffed Daewon's fingers and allowed the human to scratch behind his ears. The cub's growling stopped. June and Nara moved closer, curious about this strange, gentle touch. You see? Daewon said to the watching crowd. They are not monsters. They are babies who lost their parents. Dr. Han shook her head. This violates every protocol we have. Non-interference is the first rule of xenobiology. We observe, we do not interfere. Would you interfere if human children were dying? These are not human children. No, Daewon agreed. They are something more precious. They are children that everyone else gave up on. Minji stepped forward carefully. As Daewon's research partner, she had worked with him for 3 years. She knew his stubborn streak better than anyone. Daewon, even if your intentions are good, how do you plan to care? For them, we do not know what they eat, how they develop, or what they need to survive. One mistake could kill them or us. Then we learn, Daewon replied simply. We study them properly, not from a distance, but as part of their lives. We give them what every child needs. Love, protection, and a chance to grow. The cubs had climbed out of the transport while the humans talked. They stayed close to Daewon, but their curiosity was beginning to overcome their fear. June sniffed at Minji's boots. Nara stared up at the station's bright lights with wonder. Kai remained alert, ready to defend his siblings if necessary. Dr. Han watched the cubs for several long minutes. Despite her anger, she could not deny what she was seeing. These were not the savage beasts from the reports. They were children. Confused and frightened, but children nonetheless. 1 month, she said finally. You have 1 month to prove this can work safely. If these cubs show any sign of dangerous behavior, they go back to the wild immediately. Thank you, Commander. Do not thank me yet. You will need to modify a containment area, develop proper food, and create safety protocols for everyone on the station, and if anyone gets hurt, I understand. Dr. Han turned to leave, then paused. For what it is worth, Kim Dae-won, I hope you are right about them. The galaxy could use more compassion and less fear. As the crowd dispersed, Minji remained behind. She watched as the cubs explored their new surroundings with typical predator curiosity. Their claws left scratches on the metal floor, and their movements were faster than human eyes could follow. You realize, she said quietly, that we are probably all going to die. Daewon smiled as he watched Nara chase a reflection on the wall. Maybe, but if we succeed, we might change how the entire galaxy thinks about life and death, about who deserves to survive and who deserves to be abandoned. The cubs had found a warm corner near the transport where they curled up together. Kai kept watch while his siblings dozed, just as their father might have done. But now they were safe, fed, and surrounded by beings who would not abandon them. When times grew hard, the first night was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as 3 Valkith cubs learned to live among humans, and humans learned that sometimes the most dangerous creatures in the universe just needed someone to care. 3 months had passed since the cubs arrived at Research Outpost 7, and the station had become a very different place. The sterile corridors now echoed with the sounds of young Valkith at play, their claws clicking against metal floors as they chased each other through the halls. Daewon watched from his modified laboratory as Kai practiced hunting movements in the exercise area they had built. The young Valkith had grown significantly, now standing 4 feet tall with muscles that rippled beneath his dark fur. His movements were fluid and deadly, each step calculated for maximum efficiency. Yet when he saw Daewon watching, Kai bounded over like an oversized puppy, careful to retract his claws before nuzzling against the human's leg. The transformation had not been easy. The first weeks were filled with accidents and near disasters. Nara had accidentally slashed through a food preparation table while trying to help in the kitchen. June had destroyed 3 computer terminals simply by touching them with too much enthusiasm. Kai had nearly injured Minji during a playful wrestling match, not understanding that human bones were much more fragile than Valkith ones. But slowly, patiently, the cubs learned to control their incredible strength around their human family. They developed a gentleness that no wild Valkith had ever shown. When Daewon cut his hand on a piece of broken equipment, all 3 cubs had gathered around him, whimpering with concern. Nara had even tried to lick his wound clean. Her rough tongue surprisingly gentle. Hye-in Park, the station's research assistant, had become the cubs' nutritionist. He spent countless hours analyzing Valkith dietary needs and creating food that would help them grow strong and healthy. The cubs loved his specially prepared meat mixtures, but they also developed unexpected tastes for human foods. June had discovered a passion for sweet fruits, while Kai enjoyed the crunchy texture of processed grain bars. Soyeon Choi worked on communication, trying to understand the complex sounds and body language the cubs used to talk to each other. She had made remarkable progress, learning that Valkith communication was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. The cubs used subtle ear movements, tail positions, and scent markers to convey detailed information about their emotions and intentions. More importantly, the cubs were learning human words. Their vocal cords could not produce human speech perfectly, but they were developing their own version of basic words. Kai could say something that sounded like Daewon when he wanted attention. Nara had learned to say food and play in ways that humans could understand. June, the smallest but cleverest, was already putting together simple phrases. Dr. Bora Han visited the cubs regularly, documenting their progress with growing amazement. What she was witnessing went against everything science knew about Valkith behavior. These cubs were not just tame, they were genuinely affectionate. They sought out human company, showed concern when humans were hurt or upset, and even tried to help with daily tasks around the station. The breakthrough came when Kai saved Minji's life. Minji had been working in the station's lower levels, checking atmospheric processors when a coolant line ruptured. Poisonous gas began filling the chamber faster than the emergency ventilation could clear it. The automatic doors had sealed the area to prevent the gas from spreading, trapping Minji inside with no way to call for help. Kai had been napping in the laboratory above, when his enhanced senses detected the chemical smell. His reaction was immediate and decisive. He raced through the station corridors, his claws scratching sparks from the metal floors as he ran. When he reached the sealed chamber, he began clawing at the emergency release panel. The controls were designed for human hands, not Vacuth claws. But Kai's intelligence and determination overcame the obstacle. He managed to activate the manual override, opening the doors just as Minji was beginning to lose consciousness. Then he carefully dragged her to safety, his powerful jaws gentle around her protective suit. When the medical team arrived, they found Kai standing guard over Minji, his yellow eyes bright with concern. He would not leave her side until she woke up and assured him she was unharmed. Only then did he relax, curling up beside her bed like a faithful guardian. The incident changed everything. Word spread quickly through the station that a Vacuth cub had risked his own life to save a human. The same species that was feared throughout the galaxy for its merciless killing had produced a young one capable of selfless heroism. Dr. Taeyong. Yoon arrived from the Galactic Council 2 weeks later. He was a respected xenobiologist who specialized in predator species behavior. His job was to evaluate the cubs and determine whether they posed a threat to galactic security. Dr. Yoon expected to find barely controlled wild animals, dangerous creatures that might attack at any moment. Instead, he discovered 3 young beings who greeted him with curiosity and playfulness. Nara brought him one of her favorite toys, a piece of twisted metal she liked to carry around. Jun demonstrated his vocabulary, proudly showing off the human words he had learned. Kai simply sat nearby, watching the newcomer with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through pretense. "This is impossible," Dr. Yoon muttered as he watched Jun help Soyoung organize research materials. The young Vacuth was carefully sorting data chips, his deadly claws handling the delicate equipment with amazing precision. "6 months ago, I would have agreed with you," Daewon replied. "But here we are." Dr. Yoon spent a week at the station, running every test he could think of. He analyzed the cubs' brain patterns, studied their behavioral responses, and interviewed every human who worked with them. His findings challenged fundamental assumptions about species development and social bonding. The cubs' brains showed neural pathways that did not exist in wild Vacuth. Areas associated with empathy and cross-species recognition had developed far beyond normal parameters. They were not just learning to mimic human behavior. They were actually thinking and feeling in ways that were more human than Vacuth. "They are becoming something new," Dr. Yoon explained to the assembled research team. "Not human, not traditional Vacuth, but a bridge between species that should not be possible." The cubs seemed to understand they were being studied and evaluated. They cooperated with every test, allowing Dr. Yoon to examine them thoroughly. When he finished his work, Kai approached him and gently placed a large paw on his arm. As if to say goodbye, Dr. Yoon stared at the young Vacuth for a long moment. "In 40 years of studying predator species," he said quietly, "I have never seen anything like this. These cubs genuinely care about the humans who raised them. They would fight to protect you, maybe even die for you. And we would do the same for them," Daewon replied. The peaceful routine was shattered on a quiet morning when the station's long-range sensors detected incoming ships. 5 Vacuth vessels were approaching Kethra, moving fast and with obvious hostile intent. The largest ship bore the markings of Elder Vextar, the most feared war leader in Vacuth space. As alarms sounded throughout the station, the cubs gathered around Daewon worried expressions. They could sense the tension in their human family, and they knew danger was coming. Kai stood tall and alert, his adult instincts beginning to emerge. Nara and Jun pressed close to their brother, ready to face whatever threatened their home. The test they had all feared was finally arriving. Soon the cubs would have to choose between the species that had abandoned them and the humans who had given them love. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when nurture truly fought against nature. The Vacuth warships landed on Kethra's surface like falling stars, their hulls scarred from countless battles. Elder Vextar emerged from the largest ship surrounded by 12 of his most trusted warriors. Each Vacuth stood over 10 feet. Tall, their dark fur marked with the ritual scars of veteran fighters. Their yellow eyes burned with the cold fury that had made their species the terror of the galaxy. Day-One watched from the observation deck as the war party approached. Research Outpost 7, his hands trembled as he counted the weapons each warrior carried: plasma rifles, energy blades, and traditional Volkith claw extensions that could cut through battle armor. This was not a diplomatic mission. The cubs sensed the approaching danger long before the humans saw it. Kai had been restless all morning, pacing the corridors with his ears flat against his head. Nara whimpered softly as she pressed against Dawan's legs, seeking comfort. June, normally the most playful of the three, sat perfectly still in the corner, his intelligent eyes fixed on the entrance. Dr. Borahan activated the station's communication system as the war party reached the main airlock. Her voice remained steady despite the fear that gripped everyone in the station. "This is Research Outpost 7. You are approaching a Galactic Council scientific facility. State your business." Elder Vextar's reply came through the speakers like a rumble of thunder. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never been denied anything he wanted. "I am Vextar, Elder of the Northern Territories. You have stolen property that belongs to the Volkith people. Return it immediately or face the consequences." "We have taken nothing from your people," Dr. Han replied. "This station operates under strict non-interference protocols." "Lies, you. Harbor 3 cubs of the bloodline of Korith. They were abandoned according to our ancient laws. Taking them was theft. Taking them and changing them is an act of war." The words sent a chill through everyone listening. Somehow, the Volkith had learned about the cubs and their transformation. Day-One looked down at Kai, who had grown to nearly 6 feet in height. The young Volkith's muscles were tense, his claws extended. He understood enough human speech to know they were talking about him and his siblings. "The cubs were dying," Day-One sighed, activating his own communicator. "Every species on this planet abandoned them. We saved their lives." "You corrupted them," Vextar snarled. "Turned them into weak, pathetic shadows of true Volkith. This crime demands punishment." The airlock doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Elder Vextar strode into the station like a force of nature, his warriors following behind him. Up close, his size was even more intimidating. Battle scars covered his hide, and his one remaining eye glowed with predatory intelligence. He had not reached his position by showing mercy to anyone. The cubs reacted differently to seeing adult Volkith for the first time since their rescue. Nara cowered behind Day-One, overwhelmed by the scent and presence of her own species. June crouched low, his body language torn between submission and defiance. But Kai stepped forward, placing himself between the war party and his human family. Vextar studied the 3 cubs with obvious disgust. They were healthy and strong, but everything about their behavior marked them as different from proper Volkith young. They stood close to humans instead of maintaining respectful distance. They showed concern for weaker beings instead of contempt. Most shameful of all, they radiated the warm scent of contentment instead of the cold hunger that drove all true predators. "Look at them," Vextar growled to his warriors. "Once they might have become great hunters. Now they are nothing but pets, tamed and broken by alien influence." Jiwan Nam had been quietly recording the entire encounter, broadcasting it to the Galactic Council's emergency frequency. Her hands shook as she operated the equipment, but she knew how important it was to document what was happening. The galaxy needed to see this confrontation between 2 completely different philosophies of life. "The cubs are not property," Day-One said, stepping forward despite the obvious danger. "They are individuals with the right to choose their own path." Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Individual choice? Rights? These are human concepts that have no meaning to the Volkith. We are what we are born to be: predators, killers, the strong who cull the weak. Then what does that make you?" Kai spoke for the first time, his voice deep and clear despite his youth. The human words came slowly but with perfect pronunciation. "You abandoned us when we needed help. That seems weak to me. The shock that rippled through the Vokoth warriors was visible. Cubs did not speak to elders. Cubs certainly did not challenge the wisdom of ancient traditions. But Kai continued, his yellow eyes locked on Vextar's scarred face. These humans found us dying and gave us life. They taught us that strength comes from protecting others, not hurting them. They showed us that families do not abandon their young when trouble comes. Nara found her courage and moved to stand beside her brother. We learned about love, she said in her softer voice, about kindness and helping others. These are not weaknesses, they make us stronger. June joined his siblings, forming a line between the Vokoth warriors and their human family. We choose to stay with those who chose to save us. Vextar's remaining eye blazed with fury. Impossible, you are Vokoth. You will return with us and learn proper behavior, or you will die as traitors to your own species. They are not traitors, Daewon said firmly. They are children who learn to be better than their biology demanded. The elder's patience finally snapped. With a roar that shook the station's walls, he launched himself at Daewon, his massive claws extended to tear the human apart. For a moment, it seemed like the confrontation was over before it truly began. Then Kai moved. The young Vokoth was smaller than Vextar, younger and less experienced in combat. But he had something the elder lacked: absolute determination to protect those he loved. Kai intercepted Vextar's attack, his own claws meeting the elder's in a shower of sparks. The impact sent both Vokoth crashing into the station's wall, leaving deep gouges in the reinforced metal. Vextar rolled to his feet with predatory grace, his scarred face twisted with disbelief. A cub had dared to strike an elder. A cub raised by humans had just committed the greatest heresy in Vokoth culture. You dare? Vextar snarled. I protect my family, Kai replied simply. The battle that followed was unlike anything ever recorded in galactic history. It was not just a fight between two Vokoth, but a clash between two completely different ways of understanding strength and purpose. Vextar fought with the cold efficiency of a natural killer, each move calculated for maximum damage. Kai fought with something more powerful, love transformed into protective fury. Nara and June flanked their brother, moving with coordination that amazed the watching humans. They had never been trained for combat, but their instincts guided them. More importantly, their bond with each other and their human family gave them a reason to fight that went beyond mere survival. The other Vokoth warriors moved to join their elder, but Dr. Han activated the station's defense systems. Energy barriers sprang up, separating the combatants from the rest of both groups. This fight would be decided by the Cubs and their choices, not by superior numbers. Sumin-O worked frantically at his engineering station, trying to strengthen the barriers that contained the battle. The young Vokoth were fighting with incredible power, their claws leaving deep scores in the supposedly indestructible walls. If the barriers failed, the entire station might be destroyed in the crossfire. As the battle raged, Dr. Yun Wusong documented everything, knowing that this moment would change how the galaxy understood both Vokoth, nature and the power of nurture over genetic programming. 3 cubs who should have been savage killers were instead fighting to protect those they loved, proving that even the most feared predators could choose compassion over conquest. The fight reached its climax when Vextar, wounded and desperate, made one final attack. But instead of targeting Kai, he struck at Daewon, hoping to break the cub's spirit by destroying the human who had corrupted him. He had miscalculated. All 3 cubs moved as one, their combined strength overwhelming even an elder's defenses. Vextar found himself on the ground, the claws of 3 determined young Vokoth at his throat, but instead of delivering the killing blow that any wild Vokoth would expect, the cubs simply held him down, their eyes blazing with protective fury, but not bloodlust. We do not kill unless we must, Kai said, breathing heavily from the fight. That is what our human family taught us. Mercy is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. The station fell silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. In that moment, every assumption about Vokoth nature, about the power of genetics over environment, about the impossibility of changing a species' fundamental character, crumbled into dust. The silence that followed the battle stretched across Research Outpost 7 like a held breath. Elder Vextar lay motionless beneath the three cubs, his single eye wide with something between rage and confusion. In 40 years of warfare, he had never been defeated by opponents who chose mercy over murder. Dr. Young-ho Kong arrived with the Galactic Council peacekeeping force just as the emergency barriers powered down. His ship had been monitoring the situation from orbit, recording everything for the Council's review. What he found when he entered the station defied every expectation. 3 young Voketh stood guard over a defeated elder, their claws retracted, and their breathing steady. They showed no signs of the blood frenzy that should have consumed them after combat. Instead, they looked concerned for the humans around them, checking to make sure no one had been injured in the fight. "Impossible," Dr. Kong whispered as he surveyed the scene. His scientific mind struggled to process what he was witnessing. Voketh do not show restraint in battle. They do not spare defeated enemies. "These ones do," Daewon said quietly, his hand resting on Kai's shoulder. The young Voketh leaned into the touch. Seeking comfort after the stress of battle, Vextar struggled to his feet, his massive frame shaking with exhaustion and wounded pride. His warriors stood frozen, unsure how to react to their leader's defeat. Everything they believed about strength and dominance had been challenged by 3 cubs who fought not for conquest, but for love. "What have you done to them?" Vextar demanded, his voice hoarse from battle. "What poison did you feed them to make them weak?" "We gave them what every child needs," Minji replied, stepping forward despite her fear. "Safety, food, education, and most importantly, unconditional love. We never tried to change their nature. We simply showed them there were more ways to be strong." Do-Yun Lim, the station's behavioral specialist, had been documenting Vextar's reactions throughout the encounter. The elder's confusion was genuine and complete. His entire worldview was built on the idea that strength came from dominance, that mercy was weakness, and that the strong survived by eliminating the weak. "You do not understand," Vextar said, his voice growing desperate. "This is not how Voketh live. We are predators. We take what we need and destroy what threatens us. These cubs have forgotten their true nature." "No," June said, his young voice carrying surprising authority. "We learned our true nature. We learned that being strong means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We learned that families do not abandon their children when times become hard." Nara moved closer to Vextar, her posture non-threatening despite his obvious hostility. "Why did your people leave us to die? We were just babies." "We needed help." The question struck Vextar like a physical blow. For the first time in decades, he found himself without an immediate answer. Voketh tradition demanded the abandonment of orphan cubs, but standing before these 3 healthy, intelligent young ones, the wisdom of that tradition seemed less certain. "The weak die so the strong can survive," he said finally, but his words lacked their earlier conviction. "But we did not die," Kai pointed out. "The humans made us strong, stronger than we would have been alone. Strong enough to defeat you." The Voketh warriors who had come with Vextar began to murmur among themselves. Their leader had been bested by cubs, but these were not ordinary cubs. They moved with coordination and purpose that impressed even veteran fighters. More importantly, they had shown mercy when they could have killed, demonstrating a strength of character that traditional Voketh culture did not recognize. Dr. Kong set up his recording equipment to capture the unprecedented dialogue between species. "Elder Vextar," he said carefully, "the Galactic Council is prepared to offer you and your people protection while we work through this situation. No one wants unnecessary conflict." "Protection?" Vextar laughed bitterly. "From whom?" "From cubs who should have died as nature intended." "From yourself," Kai said quietly. "You came here ready to kill beings who had done nothing but survive. And grow, you wanted to punish us for learning to be better than we were born to be. That does not sound like strength to me." The words cut deeper than any claw could have. Vextar stared at the 3 cubs, seeing them truly for the first time. They were not the corrupted weaklings he had expected. They were magnificent specimens of Vakith development, tall and strong and intelligent. But they possessed something no wild Vakith had ever shown: genuine compassion for other species. One of Vextar's warriors, a female named Kasara, stepped forward hesitantly. She had been watching the cubs with growing fascination, her predator instincts recognizing their obvious fitness and capability. "Elder," she said carefully, "these young ones defeated you fairly. By our own laws, they have proven their strength." "They are not true Vakith," Vextar snapped. "They are something better," Kasara replied. "They have all our physical gifts, but they also have something we lost long ago. They fight to protect instead of to destroy. They show mercy to defeated enemies. They care for beings weaker than themselves." The other warriors began nodding agreement. They were soldiers, not philosophers, but they could recognize superior tactics when they saw them. The cubs had won their battle through cooperation and determination, fighting not as individuals but as a unified family unit. "The humans did not make us weak," Nara explained to the watching Vakith. "They made us whole. They taught us that there's more to life than hunting and fighting and taking what we want. They showed us joy," June added, "and laughter, and the happiness that comes from helping others succeed instead of watching them fail." Vextar looked around the station, noting details he had missed in his earlier rage. The walls showed signs of claw marks, but they were playful scratches, not the gouges of violence. Human and Vakith belongings were mixed together, suggesting genuine cohabitation rather than captivity. Most telling of all, the humans showed no fear of the cubs, even after witnessing their combat abilities. "How?" he asked finally. "How did you create this impossible bond?" Dewan smiled and reached out to scratch behind Kai's ears. The massive young Vakath rumbled with contentment, a sound no wild member of his species had ever made. "We treated them like family," Dewan said simply. "We fed them when they were hungry, comforted them when they were afraid, and celebrated their successes. We never asked them to stop being Vakith. We just showed them that being Vakath could mean more than they had ever imagined." Dr. Kang stepped forward with his analysis pad, displaying the brain scans he had taken of the cubs during their previous visit. "The neural development is unprecedented," he explained to Vextar. "Areas of their brains that remained dormant in wild Vakith have grown and strengthened. They have literally evolved beyond their species' normal parameters." "Evolution," Vextar repeated slowly. "Change. Growth," Kai corrected. "We grew into what we were always meant to become. The humans just gave us the chance to find out what that was." For long minutes no one spoke. The Vakith warriors studied the cubs with new eyes, seeing not corrupted weaklings but the next step in their species' development. The humans watched hopefully, knowing that this moment would determine the future relationship between their peoples. Finally, Vextar made his decision. With great ceremony, he performed the Vakith ritual of acknowledgement, recognizing the cubs as adults who had proven their worth in combat. Then he did something no elder had ever done in recorded history. He asked for forgiveness. "I came here to reclaim property," he said to the assembled group. "Instead, I find family. I see Vakith who have become more than any of us dreamed possible. Perhaps it is time for our people to learn new ways of being strong." Kasara stepped forward eagerly. "Elder, if these humans can help our cubs grow into such magnificent adults, perhaps some of our other young ones could benefit from their wisdom." The suggestion sent ripples of excitement through both groups. The possibility of widespread cooperation between species, of sharing knowledge and raising young together, opened doors that had never existed before. It would not be easy, Dr. Kong warned. There would need to be careful protocols, extensive planning and agreement from both the Galactic Council and Vakith leadership. "All great changes begin with small steps," Nara said wisely. "We were small steps. Now others can take bigger ones." As the various groups began discussing possibilities for the future, June approached Vextar with typical cub curiosity. The massive elder tensed, unsure what to expect from this strange young one who had helped defeat him, June simply offered him a piece of the sweet fruit he had been eating, sharing his food with a former enemy in a gesture of peace that transcended species barriers. Vexstar accepted the fruit and tasted it slowly. It was unlike anything in the traditional Vokoth diet, but it was good. Sweet instead of bitter, nourishing instead of merely filling. Perhaps, he thought, there were many things his people could learn from these strange partnerships. The galaxy was about to discover that evolution was not just about biological adaptation, but about the courage to become better than what nature alone could create. 5 years had transformed Research Outpost 7 from a simple scientific station into something unprecedented in galactic history. The corridors now bustled with activity as humans and Vokoth worked side by side, their different strengths combining to create new possibilities for both species. Daewon stood in the observation lounge, his hair now gray at the temples, watching the latest group of Vokoth cubs play in the exercise yard below. These were not orphans rescued from abandonment, but young ones brought by their own parents to learn the new ways of living that had emerged from his original act of compassion. Kai had grown into a magnificent adult, standing 8 feet tall with the muscled frame of a natural predator. But his yellow eyes held warmth instead of cold hunger, and his movements were careful around the smaller beings he had sworn to protect. He wore the ceremonial sash of a diplomatic ambassador, the first Vokoth ever to hold such a position with the Galactic Council. "The morning reports are ready," Kai said, entering the observation lounge with a stack of data pads in his massive hands. His voice had deepened with maturity, but it still carried the gentle tone he had learned as a cub. 3 more star systems have requested consultation on interspecies cooperation programs. Daewon accepted the reports with a smile. Any problems? The usual concerns about safety protocols and cultural integration. Nothing we have not handled. Before, Kai settled into the reinforced chair designed for his size and weight. Dr. Sungjin An believes his new neural pathway research will help address some of the skeptics' arguments. Dr. An had joined the station 2 years earlier to lead the Department of Interspecies Development. His groundbreaking work had proven that the cub's transformation was not just behavioral but actual evolutionary adaptation. Their brains had developed new structures that allowed for cross-species empathy and communication. In the exercise yard, Nara supervised a mixed group of human and Vokoth children as they practiced cooperation exercises. She had become the station's head of security, her predator instincts perfectly suited for protecting the community they had built. Her gentle nature with youngsters contrasted beautifully with her fierce determination to defend them from any threat. "Watch your claws, Minho," she called to a young Vokoth who was getting too excited during play. "Remember, human skin is more delicate than ours." The cub immediately retracted his claws and apologized to his human playmate. These second-generation Vokoth had never known pure predatory culture. They were raised from birth with human values of compassion and cooperation, creating an entirely new branch of their species development. June emerged from the education center, followed by a group of mixed-species teenagers who hung on his every word. He had become the station's master teacher, developing curricula that helped both human and Vokoth young understand each other's perspectives and abilities. "The advanced cooperation class is ready for their final project," June announced as he joined Daewon and Kai in the observation lounge. Despite being the smallest of the original 3 cubs, he had grown into a thoughtful leader whose insights bridged the gap between species. They want to design a new type of rescue vehicle that can be operated by both human and Vokoth crews. Dr. Chaewon-Roo, the station's child psychologist, had worked closely with June to develop teaching methods that honored both species' learning styles. Her research had shown that mixed-species education produced individuals who were more creative, empathetic, and capable of solving complex problems than either species achieved alone. The communication panel chimed with an incoming message from the Galactic Council. Dr. Bora Han, now promoted to Director of Interspecies Relations, appeared on the screen with news that would have seemed impossible 5 years earlier. The Vokoth Territorial Assembly has voted to officially adopt the Cathara Protocols, She announced with obvious satisfaction. Orphan cubs will no longer be abandoned. Instead, they will be placed in mixed-species care facilities based on our model. The news brought cheers from throughout the station. What had begun as one human's desperate attempt to save 3 dying cubs had grown into a galaxy-spanning movement that was transforming how species related to each other. Vexstar had become one of the strongest advocates for the new approach. The old elder had spent months at the station, observing and learning, gradually abandoning his rigid beliefs about strength and weakness. He now led a faction of progressive Vakaith who were working to reform their entire culture. There is more news, Dr. Han continued. The Council has approved funding for 50 new mixed-species facilities across the outer colonies. They want you to train the staff and develop operational guidelines. Daewon felt a surge of pride mixed with wonder. From 3 abandoned cubs to 50 facilities helping thousands of young beings from dozens of species. The ripple effects of compassion continued to spread far beyond anything he had imagined. In the years since the first cubs had arrived, the station had documented remarkable developments. Volkith raised with humans showed enhanced problem-solving abilities, greater emotional intelligence and leadership skills that made them valuable contributors to galactic society. Meanwhile, human children who grew up with Volkith companions developed improved physical capabilities, enhanced sensory awareness, and a fearlessness that served them well in challenging situations. The mixed-species approach was not without its challenges. Cultural misunderstandings still occurred regularly. Some traditional members of both species remained skeptical of the changes. Accidents happened when young beings forgot to account for their different physical capabilities, but the successes far outweighed the problems. The station had produced the first generation of truly integrated galactic citizens, beings who thought beyond species barriers and worked together in ways that neither humans nor Volkith could achieve alone. As the day progressed, Daewon made his rounds through the various departments. In the research labs, mixed teams were developing new technologies that combined human innovation with Volkith precision. The medical center had pioneered treatments that worked for multiple species. The communications department had created translation protocols that captured not just words, but emotional context across species lines. The dining hall at evening mealtime showed the full extent of the transformation. Humans and Volkith sat together at tables designed to accommodate both species sizes. Conversations flowed freely between groups, with universal translators helping bridge language gaps, while body language and shared experiences provided deeper understanding. Young Volkith helped human elders with mobility issues, their strength carefully controlled to provide assistance without causing harm. Human children read stories to Volkith cubs, their different perspectives on the Tales, creating rich discussions about morality and meaning. As the station settled into its evening routine, Daewon found himself back in the observation lounge where it had all begun. Kai